in the House of Representatives, what have you guys been debating? John, you've been debating a commemorative coin for baseball. You had legislation reaffirming that "In God We Trust" is our motto. That's not putting people back to work. I trust in God, but God wants to see us help ourselves by putting people back to work.
All right, now 38 past the hour. Live look at the White House. Joining us now here in Washington, the president and CEO of Sojourners and a spiritual advisor to President Obama, the Reverend Jim Wallis. Also with us, the president of the Southern Baptist Convention's Ethic and Religious Liberty Commission, Dr. Richard Land.
I thought you guys walking in here were going to come with boxing gloves.
Oh, dear.
But I find out it's your friends.
That's what we were all excited about.
We thought there'd be a huge brawl. We're so disappointed.
That's what we do here. Not really.
No, we're trying to model civility.
Oh, dear. There we go.
Okay, so there are, obviously, I think you guys joke that you can't sell each other's vote. Do you agree on what the big moral issues are going to be over the next year as we go into the election? And we'll start with you.
Well, we probably would disagree and agree about some of them. For instance, one of the things I'm going to be talking about and continue to talk about is that you cannot separate the economic crisis from the moral crisis. We spend $750 billion a year on means-tested programs trying to make up for absent fathers. We have another $250 billion in state money that goes. This is a crisis. We need to revalue fatherhood, revalue marriage. We need to marriage absence. Single parenthood is costing the government, costing taxpayers billions and billions and billions of dollars. 81% of African American single mothers, when they get married, are lifted out of poverty. 61% of white single mothers, when they get married, are lifted out of poverty. We need to end no-fault divorce. We need to say to the men of America, you can no longer get away with extended adolescence. When you make promises to women and when you father children, you're going to be responsible for them, and we're no longer going to pick up your mess.
All right, Jim, what do you think Americans are going to be focusing on when it comes to religion and politics?
I actually agreed with Rich on fatherhood, and marriage is an anti-poverty measure, but reminded him that of those who are below the poverty line, as you know, Joe, 50 million Americans now below the poverty line. 3/4 of them work. They have jobs. They just don't make enough to support a family. So I think...
But if there were 2 of them, a lot of them would.
Even when there's 2 of them, nutrition programs, EITC is critical. So our circle of protection, as you know, has evangelicals and Catholics. Right. We're the Matthew 25 Christians, a new generation across boundaries. And I would think it would be a powerful thing if Christians could focus together not on their own interests but other people's and say poverty is going to be a fundamental focus for both of us.
Let me ask you about that, Richard. And I've said this before on the show. When I started running for Congress in '94, the evangelicals, young evangelicals that wanted to work with me, were talking about abortion, gay marriage, traditional political issues for a lot of evangelicals. By the time I left 8 years later, they were talking about poverty, AIDS in Africa, the Matthew 25 Christians. And we really have seen that with a younger generation of evangelicals. And by the way, let me explain to everybody. This is where Jesus was asked how the sheep are going to be separated from the goats. And he said, if you feed the poor and clothe the naked, visit people in prisons, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, one of the things that's been underreported is that in the last 40 years, you've seen the globalization of evangelicalism through the deprofessionalization of missions. Up until about 40 years ago, we were called to support missionaries. We loved missionaries. They were the heroes when they came back on furlough. But we weren't supposed to go do missions. But about 40 years ago, lay mission started, and I'd say probably 15% of the membership of evangelical churches in America have been overseas on missions. And that's why we have been stirred to lead the charge on human trafficking, to lead the charge on global human rights and religious freedom.
And by the way, Nick Cruz